Welcome to the G Squad Chronicles podcast, where we have frank discussions about life, love, and everything in between. My name is Gail, and I'm your host and captain of the G Squad. To my existing tribe, thank you for continuing to ride with me, and welcome home. To those of you new to the squad, welcome, and I'm delighted that you're here. Now, remember, if you like the content that we share, please share our link on Spotify. And also, you can check us out on YouTube. You can hit subscribe so that you can be notified whenever we upload new content. So we have a very exciting show for you today, or what I think is going to be an exciting and robust conversation. We're going to be discussing a subject near and dear to many of us and not so much for some of us. We're going to talk about sex after 50, or in the case of some of the people who I won't name on the call, sex after 60. I have in the squad house with me today someone new to the squad, my brother from another mother. His name is Stacy. I'm not allowed to give his full name. I have my ride or die sidekick who's a regular on the show, Greg Anderson. You guys are familiar with Greg. Say hi to Greg. I also have my other ride or die, Tracy Mitchell. She's also a regular on the show and in the squad house. So welcome, Stacy, Greg, and Tracy. So let's jump right in. This topic was kind of hard for me to get people to want to come on and talk about, because people just aren't very comfortable discussing such an intimate topic. We are brave hearts, I like to say, because I was a little leery. Oh, what am I going to talk about? I'm not married. I really don't have a whole lot to add to this. So,
Greg, you're after 50, right?
Yeah, I'm at 50. I don't quite hit the 60 mark. So guys, okay. Tracy and I are here for informational purposes. We're just trying to get the 411. We want to hear all about the after 50 groove, the honest 411, and not that I wish I was still putting it down like that conversation. We want to hear the real deal. And I'm going to take my glasses off so I can really talk to you guys, because my glasses start to steam up as we talk about this topic. Greg, let me just give you a warning. If you don't give me, Greg is the only married person on the call, so he can share a lot more than that I can. But remember, Greg, your wife is one of my dear friends, so I can get the facts when you give the alternate facts. So just remember that. Remember that when you're trying to tell us how you sling it morning, noon, and night.
Of course, I'm going to keep it 100 with you all. Okay. But I will tell you, just for a point of reference, it's raining down here, so I don't want to get struck by lightning. So I'm not going to tell no big whoppers. That's one thing, and the other is, at some point, my wife's going to look at it, and so she even asked me, what's the topic of conversation tonight? And I said, I think we're talking about career planning or something.
Well, I mean, it could be. That could be some of our next career.
We got to have options.
Yeah, we got to keep our options open. I mean, I hear this, that's getting pretty lucrative out there.
Oh, no doubt. OnlyFans is a thing. So I hear.
Yeah, so I hear. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to start with you, with the ladies, Tracy and I. So Tracy, before you were single, do you feel like the sex kind of slowed down as you got in your 50s, or do you feel like it was above the same? And I ask that because many experts tell us that sex is good for the heart and the brain, even after 50, or especially after 50. So the question is, in my mind, is it good, and is it good at the same level that it was when you were younger?
Ooh, absolutely not. I don't think it's no. I think, and that's just real talk. Like, life is just going on, especially when you're married. You start having kids, and you're busy with them, you're busy in your career, it's hard, or it takes effort to carve out time to do that. And it shouldn't be an effort, so don't get me wrong, but it shouldn't be an effort, but it is different. But I also think that once your kids get a little older, then you start feeling like, okay, I'm gonna get my groove back, So I think it's like a stage that you go through where it kind of is not as great, but when you swing through to the other side of it, I think it could be great. But I'm single, so yeah.
Yeah. Greg, why don't you jump in here? What's your take on that? Is it? I know it's good, but is it good at the same level? Or do you feel like, I mean, I know it doesn't. It's not like it was when you were in your 20s, but I mean, give us your insight on that.
Who was that question for?
Greg.
Oh, okay. When Tracy was talking, I thought about the timeline associated with sexual, I guess, sexual joy, if that's a phrase I can use. Mm-hmm. And needless to say, when you're in your 20s, you're uninhibited, swinging off chandeliers, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But like Tracy said, once you sort of traverse the continuum of life, you have other things that sort of trump, the chandelier swinging, I guess. And so for me, I would, if time permits, I would like to share that. Remember that graphical depiction I shared with you? Mm-hmm. Because it basically showed the timeline. I mean, everybody thrives sexually when they're courting. Right. But, over time, physical limitations seep in and you're just not doing the thing you used to do. And in a lot of cases, you don't want to. Mm. And so you replace some of that sexual activity with other things that you and your spouse may enjoy, speaking from somebody who's married. So I think what you have to sort of consider is, especially if you're 50 and you're not married, mm-hmm. I think you have to consider the person that I connect with and spend the rest of my time with. We have to have something that we're compatible with other than sex, right? It's something that we enjoy, doing. It could be chess, it could be running, it could be antiquing, anything. And I only say that not because it's a replacement for good sex, but it supplements the downtime, because you're not going to be doing that as much as you would when you were in your 20s and 30s.
I like that.
I like that too.
Now, I will say that sometimes, and men in particular, a lot of times can develop medical conditions like high blood pressure and things where they have to take medications that prevent them from being able to perform at the same level. And women also experience different changes. Women's sex drives can decrease with menopause, with aging, and so they're not always as ready like they were in their younger years. So, Stacey, what do you have to say about that? Do you feel like a lot of times older women, because I know you don't, Stacey's single, so I know you don't date a ton of older women, but do you feel like that's the case with older women, or do you think there's not really a difference between older women and younger women and their readiness and their sexual prowess?
I mean, that's kind of hard because you have some older women who are still very active sexually as you do younger women. So it's kind of hard. Like I said, I don't really date quote unquote older women. Mm-hmm. So I can't speak on it. I usually, try to tend to somebody in their 40s, mm-hmm. maybe early 50s. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, yes, Stacey has a
40s.
Stacey has a cat.
He has a cat. I heard that loud and clear. Yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah, you heard that.
I mean, most women in their 40s, they very active. So you just have to try to keep up with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like that.
Hey, let me add on to what Stacey said, but also add this. I'm in the 60 and older club. Mm-hmm. As Gail, put me on blast a little early. But I've got a couple dudes who we're real good friends who are both over 60 and they're married to women who are like 15, 20 years younger than them. Mm-hmm. They hate it. See, wow. It was a thing when they were in their 40s because they pulled.
Right.
But now, when they're in their 60s, and it's almost like their lives in the sexual arena and other arenas are not equally yoked, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
it presents itself as a problem. And both of those dudes have told me that they think their significant others are just basically waiting for them to die. You know, I mean, I hate to,
Oh, that's not nice. Wow.
Oh, wow. Well,
so I think it's dangerous to get too far out of your lane. You know, you
right,
talk
right. Do you guys think sometimes, because I know a lot of times as men start to, or their bodies start to betray them, as I like to say it, and so their bodies aren't able to perform as well as it was, as opposed to communicating with their women, they blame them and they tend to say, well, it's not me, it's got to be you, and then they go to seek, comfort elsewhere. And meanwhile, your mate's at home dealing with the bills, the children, the mortgage, the whatever. Do you see that? Well, not necessarily in your relationships, but do you see that with other people? Greg and Stacy. Greg, you go first.
Okay, so I think the question was, since men sometimes have problems with medical issues which affect their ability to perform sexually, do they lose interest in sex at the crib and look for something outside their marital or outside their relationship? Is that what you asked?
No. Okay, so let me put it differently. I think sometimes men are less likely to be able to have their wives know that they're having these problems. They're not as honest about it. So they will tend to blame her. Oh, I'm not attracted to you. Oh, this, that, or the other's wrong.
Right.
And, it becomes her issue, not his. And then he pops up with 20-year-old or hot 40-year-old or whatever it is. And then, all of a sudden he looks like the man, when in actuality, he needs Viagra and everything else he needs to take to keep up with this chick or these chicks or however many there are. Right. So do you have any friends where you feel like they've blamed their spouse for their shortcomings?
I do, actually. I believe that there's a direct correlation between your health, your sexual health, and the investment that you make in keeping, and staying physically fit as you age. And if you don't do that, then, of course you aren't going to be able to perform like you did when you were younger. But as you said, then you may look for like a scapegoat because you haven't invested in self. So you get to a point in your life where you can't please your significant other and you got to blame something, and it's too late then to all of a sudden just get into shape immediately. So I can see that happening. And some of that's ego, because, you've got to deal with your shortcomings before you can get better. You have to acknowledge that there's a problem before you can improve it. And so, of course, dudes don't mention that to me directly, but I can see that being a problem.
Okay. So, and I also, and Tracy, you can speak to this. I also think sometimes, because I know, in talking to women, sometimes we can, have attitudes that aren't helpful towards that marital construct. Like, for instance, we're like, I've worked all day, I got to come home, help kids with homework. I got to get dinner ready. I got to do all these things. I ain't trying to hang from the chandeliers by the time 8 or 9 o'clock comes after I've done all of that. I got to get these kids to bed, whatever the case is. Sometimes as women, we get away from doing the things we did before we had all these responsibilities, before we had to work all day, feed the kids. Now, if you're, a stay-at-home mom, God bless them because they work harder than any of us, maybe they don't have those same issues because if the kids go to school and they have more time during the day, and that's not by any means to say that stay-at-home moms don't work hard, because they work harder than anybody I know. But sometimes I feel like some women may not necessarily feel like or have the desire that they once had because there's so many other responsibilities that they're taking on within the home.